Welcome back to House Guest with me, Hailey Fennel. I'm a psychic medium, and this is the podcast that connects you to the other side. I'm so excited. Today I've got Raya on. She was one of the people, every once in a while, I'll post on Instagram. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we're one of the people that every once in a while, okay, good. Every once in a while, I post on Instagram like, hey, I need some more people for Zooms for the podcast. And Raya is one of the people that reached out. So follow me at Hailey Fennel on Instagram, and you too will very occasionally see those posts. And then I tend to book like a few people at a time. So you can get one of those spots if you want. So I'm really excited. Thank you for reaching out and for being game.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, so you said that you've listened to the podcast before, so I'll skip over kind of some of that stuff. But this part is still somewhat relatively new. I was already telling you about this before I hit record. But yeah, I'm going to give you like a mini to a medium reading, and then we'd love to hear like what you do and where you are, and maybe anything that came up in the reading, and we'll just let it flow from there. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close my eyes, and you can close your eyes too if that feels good to you. And either way, just start taking a few really good deep breaths and just start to imagine a bridge directly between the two of us. And it's a really strong, sturdy, stable bridge. And instead of walking across that bridge, just imagine it getting shorter and shorter, and we're becoming closer and closer. Imagine our guides meeting and starting to communicate. Imagine our souls meeting and starting to communicate. And then, of course, imagine anyone you know who has passed away and is on the other side coming forward. Imagine that they see, hear, and know everything that's happening in your life, that they too have the information for you here today. And then just take a few more deep breaths and imagine that bridge getting so small and so short that it completely disappears between the two of us. You can open your eyes. I'm going to open mine too. You're going to see me write like a few things down. I've had someone that like predominantly kind of comes kind of like across and over my shoulder this way and starts to hang out, wanting to come in for the reading. It's a funny angle for me. Sometimes when I get taps on my shoulders, that's a little bit more grandparents to me. Sometimes like an angle to me is a little bit more like an aunt coming in. Does that make sense to you?
Not yet.
That's okay. That's okay if you're like, I cannot place that. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to see. It feels a little bit different. All right, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close
Oh,
my eyes, and I might just be quiet for a little bit just because it feels so different to me. Okay, hold on. Oh, okay. All right, lovely. Good, good, good. All right, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to just start talking, and that's going to be helpful. Okay, good. This is what it feels like. Like I can kind of understand some of the taps happening. Like I think at some point we're going to tap into grandparents at some point. It's almost as though they just want me to be aware of this other energy that kind of is coming through too. This is going to be a funny description of someone, but I'm going to go for it for a second. If you could imagine someone that is like a friend of parents, or like it feels a little bit more female to me. Friend of, I could even say like parents' generation. I'm writing some of this down. And it's like, hey, hi, hello. Like I want to come in.
I I don't know, but when you said aunt and I said no, then I immediately thought of my great aunt.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's that. I don't know.
Okay,
But
so
parents'
aunt, great
generation.
aunt, as in grandparents, sister.
Yes.
Okay, great aunt. I'm gonna put a little question mark by it. Aunt, great aunt. I'm gonna do this for anyone that is listening to the podcast that kind of does this for the sake of like, hey, like I want to do something similar to Haley. And they could maybe even watch this video. We're gonna start posting some of them, but there's like a difference between grandparents that kind of come in close ants do like a funny little angle thing. Usually ants in within generation come at like a slash angle. And so I was like, oh gosh, like we're not with an ant, like it's a little bit further than that. I start to like expand my view of who else could come in. And what they're going to do is they're going to be like, well, we're just going to start saying the things so that like no matter what to Raya, it just starts making sense, even if Haley feels like she's getting a little bit lost. So I'm like, okay, so are we talking about parents' generation? And they're like, sure, sure, sure. And then we could be like, kind of next tier to parents. Like if I don't have a parent coming in, it's like a friend of parents. So there's two different things that could be going on here, like a female friend of parents, or if I jump it up to that like grandparents generation, and I missed great aunt before, that also feels like really good to me. So it could be two different people, but it
There
also,
is someone friend of parents, but it's not a female.
and it's not a female. Okay. We could be
So
getting,
I don't know.
that's okay. That's okay. That's actually perfect information to have because I'm like, I feel this aunt kind of coming in. So I'm taking it as female. And then there's male friend of parents. Friend of parents. Did you ever get to meet your great aunt?
Briefly, when I
Okay.
was young. I was young.
Okay. Hold on. Not that I want to totally brush off male friend of parents, but I'm just going to let him take like a step back for a second. He can always like come in later if we want him to, but I'm going to focus a little bit more on great aunt if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. She kind of just gives me a little bit. She's like, well, I was here first. So if you could just like let me go first, that's okay. And that's like more on me as the psychic medium, being like a little bit like if I kind of get a no and then I got like a little nervous, and I was like, oh, like, oh no, like it's not an ant. Like, how could it not be an ant? I can like jump to someone else, and that's my fault. I should have, and I'm saying this for anyone that's listening that's kind of wants to do something. What I should have done is just like taken a deep breath and been like, let me say this information one more time and see if it makes sense, which I think we would have gotten back to great aunt, which is beautiful and good. She says that. She's like, it's beautiful and good. She feels a little bit like a transparent person. She's like, tell people what you're thinking, Haley. Like, you don't have to be so perfect about it. Like, readings aren't like a black and white thing. It can be much like a being in a gray area, often at all times. Okay, lovely, good, lovely, good, lovely, good. All right, I'm gonna close my eyes. Because she just goes, there's a reason I'm coming in. Okay, love. She's like, I love you. Like, I love you. I love you. I love you. She's like, I'm helping to take care of people both here and there. She's a little bit like, I help greet people here on the other side. She's like, so like, I just want to let you know, like when people pass, like here I am. Like I help to greet people, like welcome, welcome, welcome. She kind of does 3 welcomes like that. A little bit like as though there's 3 people in the family that you could imagine her welcoming to the other side. Okay, lovely, good. Okay, hold on. She's going to change topics a little bit for me. And I might just be quiet for a little bit. I'm going to sit with her for just a second. Okay, she's like, well, I want to talk, but not too much because there's like some other people that want to come in for the reading too. But she's like, I do want to say hi and that like all is good and well. She gets kind of quite proud of her life. And she makes it kind of broad. She's like, I did a lot of, I know you can't see outside the screen, but so she puts my hands out here and she's like, I made my life like kind of like big and broad. Does that make sense to you?
I don't know. I'd have to ask my dad. He would
Okay,
know
that's
more.
okay. I'm gonna put
Yeah.
big broad, with a question mark. Okay, hold on. I'm just gonna be quiet for a second. I'm just gonna be quiet for a little bit longer. I'm gonna ask her to come in. Oh, okay, hold on. There we go. Okay, that's fine. Okay, and then she's like, okay, and then look right, like, she's gonna kind of let someone else in here, but she's like, I want you to know that I'm backing up some of this information. And she touches the back of my neck, which is my sign symbol for like I come in as guide for Raya. She's like, it's okay that you guys didn't like know each other all that well. But she's like, this is how we're going to get to know each other better. Like, I want you to just know that I also come in as guide with some of this information that's going to come forward. Okay, good. Okay. Right, I'm going to ask you a question. What I feel is like more someone coming in on your mom's side that feels quite important. Like they keep
Hmm.
kind of touching this side and they're like, I want to come in. Like I kind of want to be like the main part of this conversation. They get quite close to my heart as though I understand that they're like quite a close person to you in your life. Does that make
Hmm.
sense to you?
Hmm.
Like, I love you, I love you, I love you. And Aunt's going to let them in. Okay. And it feels female to me. I'm going to say that.
Hmm.
It's like, hi, like I'm here. And I'm just going to turn my page. Sorry, I put that on a different page. Okay. Lovely, good. And she just says, I love you. I'm like, I love you. She kind of goes like this. She holds you as like a little baby. And she's like, I just like, could like look at you all day is how it feels to me. And just wanting to be like super, like knowing that you feel the same way that that closeness is there. I'm gonna let her come in a little bit closer. Okay, lovely, good. All right. She shows me like a little bit of a memory of her like scooping you up and like holding you. And it's a little bit like she's putting your face close to her face. And that there might even be, I'm going to turn to the side, but there might even be like a picture like that where she's kind of like holding you and like her face is close to her, your face is close to her face. Does that make sense to you?
Um, maybe.
Okay, that's okay. A maybe's perfect. Maybe just look at, sometimes when we like, when it makes sense later, it's even better. And in this case, it's something so specific like a picture where it's like,
Yeah.
that or it's something she just goes like this to my, which is like something with like the profile.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, look at her, look at me. And then, but she does show me like little Raya with her. Does that make sense?
When you say profile, maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Just the similarity.
Love it. This is perfect. Good, good, good. Love it. Good. Okay, good. She gets like she calls it like a sweet kick out of that. Okay. Okay, hold on. There we go. I might just be quiet for a little bit. She's going to come in a little bit close. She's coming in like a different way. Like she wants to give some different information. Okay. She comes. All right. Fine, 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 fine. She comes, and this is like a little bit more stereotypical than I typically like to make people, but she's like, I'm lovely and I'm sweet and I'm kind. And she's like, and I have this really nice smile. And I just like have this gentleness to me that really like seeped into life and into the people I was around, and people knew that about me. Does that make sense to you?
Hmm.
And she calls herself well, this is a little bit more my words. She says it's fine. She says it's fine to share. She's like, I would call her like a gentle creature. Like she even like seems quite ethereal to me, where I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, she just feels so like light, and like a gentle creature. Does that make
Hmm.
sense to you?
Hmm.
And loving and lovely. Okay, lovely. And then I'm taking this as it feels like grandmotherly to me.
Hmm.
And she's like, gives me a little bit like, but don't make me too stereotypical. So what I'm going to do is kind of like close my eyes and be like, ooh, like, what do you mean by that? Like, what kind of, she kind of wants me to like spice it up a little bit. She's like, I was like such an easy person to be around because of my gentle nature. She's like, but I was really fun and like couldn't let a party pass me by. Does that make sense to you?
Sure.
I love it. Do you understand? Like she gives like I think it's a martini because she gives me like a specialty drink is what she calls it, or it's something where
Huh.
she like can hold like a small stem of a drink. Does that make sense to you?
Um, no.
That's okay. I know it's fine. I know it's fine. I'm just writing down what I'm gonna do. I'm writing down specialty drink, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna close my eyes and see. Okay, lovely, good. Hold on. I'm gonna hold on to that. Okay, hold on. Okay, fine. I'm gonna say it like that. She keeps trying to hand me what feels like, if you could imagine what it would feel like to hold a martini stem in between your, like it feels
Hmm.
delicate like that. She keeps trying to hand me something like that, where I almost have to pinch it and hold it like this. Does that make sense to you?
Not really. Not yet. Tell her to
Okay,
give you
that's okay.
something else.
I love it. I love it. She's like pinching it and holding it like
Hmm.
this. Instead of stem. But I mean I can understand. I'm like what I'm trying not to do is I'm like stem, like are we talking about a flower? Are we talking about thing? But it feels so solid in my hand that she's
Huh.
like just stick it there and she's like, don't worry about it, Haley. Like, just say it. Which is okay. That's fine. I'll do it. Okay. All right. And if she wants to like move that needle for us at some point in the reading, she will. Or if it makes sense later, just let us know.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. All right. She's kind of sinking more into me, and she's like, I'm really, really excited to be here. Oh, lovely, good. And she kind of wants to take your mom and like hug her super close. Like, hi. Like, I just like those. That's my girl, is how she puts it. Like, and I love her.
My mom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. Lovely, good. And she kind of, it's like, okay, that's a funny way of putting it. She like starts hugging her like so close and so tight. And she's almost like, I'm going to hug her until she kind of loosens up a little bit. Like, I'm just going to like squeeze her so tight until she like doesn't have a choice but to kind of like let things like loosen up. Does that make sense?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions for grandmother?
I do. I'm curious if she kind of knows, well, a couple different things. Like knows where I am at this point in my life, like what everything I have, if she's seen it and what she thinks of it.
Oh, I love that. It's a beautiful question. They see, okay, love, I'm gonna start there. They see, hear, and know everything. So she's like, I know it all. Like I see everything that she calls it, everything that you've harnessed in for yourself. She's like, I see it, I see it, I see it. Okay, okay, lovely, good. And she calls it like Raya's like, she says like growing heart, but the way that I like interpret that is like as moms sometimes, like when we like have a baby, it's like our heart just like grows more than we could like we didn't even know it was possible until it is. Does that make sense? So she's like, look at the growing and the
Mm-hmm.
growing heart. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
It feels so good. Yeah, lovely, good. And she's quite proud of you. Okay, lovely. Hold on. Okay. Oh, okay, lovely. Okay, and then what she says to you, and she's like, okay, but the only thing, she's like, look, I see, hear, and know everything. I see what you're doing. And then she says, oh, lovely. I'm going to get that. Hold on. And then I'm going to get it in better words. Let me be quiet just for a second. All right. Okay, fine. And then she says something like, okay, look, we're going to start to connect in even more and even more and even more. Like as though she's talking about you and her. She's like, you and I, like we're going to connect in even more. And she says it's okay to put things on hold for a little bit. That feels a little bit more career wise when I'm talking about it. That's a hard thing for me to say because me as a person, I always want to be like, they can just do whatever they want. Like, what if Raya doesn't want to put things on hold? And your grandmother is telling me, like, Hailey, can you just please go ahead and say it because she needs to hear that it's okay to put things on hold. Does that make sense to you?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then I will, this is from me, Hailey, low funnel. Like if you don't want to, you don't want to. But she's like, if there's like a choice there to be made, you'll be just as strong on the other side of it should you decide to put things on hold. She's going to be with you there for that. And should you need some like clarity with that, she's like, I can help connect in with you. I can help direct you. She starts talking about she calls it, I think what she calls it is multiple, lovely. She calls it multiple things in your house that are like from her that you can like connect in with her. Like this makes her think of me. This is from me that I gave to her. I can understand some like, that's so funny. She just put two things in my head at once that mean the exact opposite. She's showing me porcelain plates and then she calls it the softer things. I'm like, that's two different things. But she does something with like a porcelain sort of feel to it. And she's like, da-da-da-da, and she like trickles down through those. And then she also calls it, she's like, and then there's these like soft things that I've given her that feel a little bit more pillow-like. Does that make sense to you?
She used to make blankets,
Oh, I love
like
it.
knit blankets. So the
Okay.
softer things make me think of that. And then, yeah, we have some dishes of hers.
Okay. I love it. She's like, and I think that runs the gamut for me where I'm like, these are like some very fragile things that like I am too afraid to touch. And then these are some softer things. And she's like, "Phew," then everything in between. She's like, there's so many things that she gets to have around her to think of me.
Mm-hmm.
And those are things that are perfect to connect in whenever we have something from a loved one that's just around our house. There she goes. Okay. That's around our house. We get to connect in just by seeing it, like just by walking by it. It kind of reminds us of them. And I love the blankets. I mean, that's a great one to have from her because that's such a physical thing that we can like touch quite often. And just harness in those memories and just know that those people are close by. She sometimes I'll get this advice from the other side where it's like, don't be afraid to move it around a little bit or to like purpose it in different ways. Cause sometimes if we like use a porcelain plate, for example, as a ring dish instead, where we like always put our rings at night, it's a great way of, seeing it more and connecting in just like a little bit of a different way that it reminds us even more so that they're there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any questions around that?
I don't.
Okay. Do you have any questions for her? Other questions for her?
I don't think so right now.
Okay. That's okay. That's perfect. All right. Okay, then I'm going to ask you a question. So I had great aunt with us before, which is on dad's side. And then we've got grandmother. Is there anyone else, grandmother on mom's side, lovely. Anyone else that you wanted to connect in with that I didn't quite get to?
If we could maybe go back to that friend of
Yeah,
parent and see if they would come in.
I sure can. Oh, lovely. Hold on. Okay, hold on. I'm going to be transparent about that part. Okay, lovely. I just gave a reading to someone where a male friend of parents, like both parents, came in and I like am being hard on myself right now, but in like a playful way. I'm like, how did I miss that? I was just kind of saying that, and then how did I miss that? I think I got confused with the great aunt, and that's okay. That's lovely. But that same sort of feeling, but what was funny is for you it came over here, and for her it came kind of over my left shoulder. Lovely. Hold on. I know I'm saying a lot of stuff out loud. It's a little bit for people listening on the podcast to help. I think I've said this before on the podcast. I chose this. Like I told grandparents to start tapping me on the shoulder. I tell parents to come over my heart. Parents kind of started doing that for me. And now I'm like, okay, great. Always come like that because it makes it so obvious. Aunts come in at like a sharp angle. Aunts and uncles, that's fine. Come in at, someone just reminded me of that to say uncles too. Come in at like a sharp angle for me. And then there's like this funny in between people, right? Where we have like, kind of this mashup of like, well, they're not family members, but they can feel like family members, or like they were close enough with the family that we even sometimes like gave them the honor of calling them aunt, uncle, whatever, but they weren't actually. And so that's a little bit of not a new area for me, but it's so helpful when it does come up in readings like this. And this is for anyone practicing. Like, don't get disheartened when you kind of get it wrong, because if it comes up like over and over again, it's because it's like a new person that's really important to connect in with. And it's so important to think outside of just family members or friends, because even if we didn't have those types of people in our lives, like me, Hailey, sometimes it's important for other people to connect in with them. So I'm just saying that, Raya. I know that's like a lot to say in a reading, and in a private reading, I usually wouldn't say that, but I'm just saying that because there's like an awareness that there's some people listening to House Guest to get better at doing what it is that they're doing. And this is one of the things in how I get better at doing psychic mediumship is I'll go back and reflect. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right. There's like this kind of ball of energy coming in this slightly different spot that's close enough to aunt and uncle, but is not aunt and uncle. Lovely, good. And I hope that if anyone has any questions like that, you guys just reach out and ask me. Okay, I'm going to focus in. Okay, so parents, friend, male. He goes, all good and well. Like, I'm okay. All good and well. He's like, I'm okay here on the other side. Like I'm feeling mentally a lot better. Does that make sense to you? And I know that they don't have like a body or a mind necessarily anymore. Like they really are just spirit. But he kind of understands like how important it is to know that, hey, I feel good. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
He says, I feel good. Okay. Okay, lovely. gonna close my eyes. He like sends a lot of love to your parents. A lot of love to your parents. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna ask him to come a little bit closer. Okay. Do you understand that I was asking him to come closer, and what he does for me is he kind of starts. He does this on purpose. It's not because he doesn't want to communicate. He wants to communicate with us, but he's like, well, you got to talk about this one thing before I come in. And he puts like a little distance between not just you, but between you and your family. Like, like I just started to like separate myself out. Does that make sense to you?
I don't know.
To me, it feels more like a mental thing. Like I wasn't doing okay mentally, and I'm separating myself out. Does that make
Potentially.
sense? Okay. And maybe or potentially that is totally okay. Okay, fine. I'm gonna say it in a different way. He's like, say it this way. Like there's some things that he just like wasn't ready to talk about. He couldn't talk about. And he's like, it was just like a little bit hard to talk about towards end of life. Does that make sense
Probably.
to you?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Good, good, good. You know that feeling like when someone comes up to you and like you're not doing okay, and then someone asks you, "Are you okay?" and like you can't help but cry, and you're like, "God, that's like the last question I wanted someone to ask me." He like gets kind of funny like that. He's like, "If I hung out with people too much, they were gonna ask me how I was doing, and it's so hard to talk about how I was doing." Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's like, but I love you guys. Like, I love you, I love you, I love you. Okay. And I can understand that he like gathers up your family and like gives you guys some really big hugs, but then he also gathers up his family. And he's like, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's this like, these are like my, like, he's like, of course, those are my loved ones. He's like, I also have this, like, these loved ones over here. And I just like gather them up and I'm giving them kisses all the time. And they know that I'm still around. They feel that I'm still around. There's even like something I think a little bit special that they do around him. If they're like, he's like, he gives me the number 2. It makes me feel like quite recently they did something in my honor, and he's like, it's a perfect way to remember me and honor me and the love that I had for them. Does that make sense to you?
I'll have to ask.
Okay, perfect. He gives me 2 as though it could have even been just like 2 weeks or 2 months ago.
Okay.
I'm just write that down. Do you have any questions for him?
I have something in memory of him, and I'm just wondering if he knows about it or knows what it is or anything like that.
I like that, in memory of him. He definitely knows about it. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to say what it is or not. I might ask you in a little bit. I mean, they know, like they know about it. They see it. They know about it. I don't know if this is going to make sense, but what he wants me to do is he keeps like taking a key and like putting it into like an ignition and turning it. Does that make any sense to you?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's okay. Key turning. I'm going to ask you, what is the thing that
I have a
you have?
tattoo.
Oh, you do? What is
Mm-hmm.
it of?
It's a little heart on my ankle. It was supposed to be a quote, but when I went to get it done, they wouldn't do it, so I got something else. But it's still symbolic to me and of him.
Oh, I think that's beautiful. What would the quote have been?
I'll always be your angel.
Oh, I think that's beautiful. I'm just going to close my eyes for a little bit. I'm just be quiet for a little bit longer. Okay, hold on. There we go. Okay, I'm going to say this out loud. What I'm doing in my mind is so he keeps placing in my mind kind of that vision of like a key, like going into an ignition, like starting it up. Okay, lovely, good. Okay. And then what he does is he kind of starts like going on a long drive and listening to music. Like when you ask like, hey, there's this thing, like, does he see the thing that I do in honor of him? If sometimes, I mean, it'd be great if I was like, you have a tattoo of him. I'm like, like, I mean, that would honestly like dream reading right there. Sometimes occasionally like things like that can come up. There's reasons why it doesn't. And I feel like I'm not in charge of what they're giving me and what they're not. But I do what my job is to share with you what they are giving me. So I'm going to share with you kind of just the vision that he's giving me. He like keeps putting this key in this ignition and starting it, and then he starts going on a long drive, and it feels a little bit more like an older car to me, where we have to like tune the radio to listen to it. And it feels very cathartic, like just that idea of like I'm going on a long drive, and it feels good. And it's a little bit like an invitation for you to kind of like come along with them and just listen to the radio and relax and feel good. I know that's like really simple, but it does feel good, and I want to share that with you. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, I'll have to think about that more.
Okay. Do you have any other questions for him?
Does he have anything he wants me to tell my dad?
Oh, I love that. That's a great question. He's like I love you. I love him. Okay, hold on. It's like tell him I love him. Tell him I'm with him. Okay, fine. And then maybe tell him only if you want to, because I rarely say things in a reading where I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like tell somebody else about this part of the reading. Maybe describe that, like what I just said
Mm.
about driving in the car to him is how he puts it.
Okay.
And then he does say something. He just puts in my mind skipping rocks, and I'm not sure what that means, but I am just going to say it out loud.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any other questions for me?
Just in general or about like the reading?
It can be in general or about the reading. I think I might ask you some questions about the reading in a little
Yeah.
bit, but yeah,
Okay.
anything.
Um, I think I just had questions like I know you've talked about how you got into it, into reading psychic and trans mediumship and stuff like that. But you've also talked about how things change and like
Mhm.
people come in different ways. Like, how do you know that it's changed or that it's a different person or a different way of someone coming in?
That's a great question. Sometimes it just happens in a reading, and like this. Like I think this is like a great example. I'm like, oh gosh, this is like a new sort of character for me. This is a new sort of person from the other side coming in, and it's just my willingness to pay attention to it. And it's a little bit like I get to decide and they get to decide. And when they start to show me something new, I'm like, oh, okay, it's like a new person that needs to come in. There's no coincidence that someone right before you had like a similar, like a parent's friend that came in, and I had almost kind of missed it for them too. And then like it comes in for you, and I will not be surprised if next week or later this week I get the same thing. And this second I'm like, oh, I recognize this energy. They are showing me something that I am supposed to be paying attention to. So sometimes it's like as quickly as that. It's as quick as I'm able to pay attention to it. Is kind of how it starts changing. Grandparents have been pretty solid for me lately, like tapping me on the shoulder. But for example, there's grandparents that were close to us and they'll come in really close. Occasionally, I'll get a grandparent that either we didn't meet in life or for other reasons, like weren't close to, like we had some pretty solid boundaries with. They'll come in a different way. And I might like, it's like reading that information of like, ooh, like why are they not just going ahead and like stepping up to the plate? And then I have to like interpret that between them and me. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So it's kind of constantly changing. Some things will stay the same for just long enough for me to like really harness it in and hone it in. And they know that like I'm practicing and that my intention is to get better because like I really just want people to feel connected mostly to themselves, but sometimes that's through the catalyst of the other side. So the other side knows that that's my intention. So they're constantly like, "Great, Haley wants to get better at this. Let us throw her some curveballs and like see if she's game to play today." Does that make sense? There's lots of
Yeah.
baseball references happening right now, and I'm not sure why, but so be it. But yeah, that's kind of it changes because I'm noticing it, I
Mhm.
guess. Yeah,
So
and
when
willing
someone
to do
comes
it.
in for you, is it like do you visualize something in your mind? Do you hear them talk? Like what is that whole process connection like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It starts off as a feeling. And this is kind of like a new thought in psychic mediumship that maybe quite possibly, and this is just a theory. Like anyone, there's probably some psychic mediums out there that are like, absolutely not, this is how I do it. But I think maybe for everyone, and this is psychic mediums or not, it starts as a feeling. Like we feel like someone's in our house with us. We feel like someone's in the car with us. We feel like someone's trying to like give us a hug or just stand next to us or is in the room. It starts off as a feeling. And then I just happen to be a very visual person. So it then goes into my imagination for me. Someone else could be more of an auditory sort of person and they start hearing things. Occasionally I'll hear things. But for me, it's more visual, especially in readings. It's like I feel it. And then all of a sudden I'll get like a grandparent that starts giving me like visions of what they were like. And they are only able to give me something that I have experienced in life, maybe a dream. I think that that could play into it. But maybe dreams are only things that we have like gathered images together from. Who knows? So, like when I get a grandmother, I wasn't close with either of my grandmothers. In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. That's like a convoluted conversation. But uh, if I get a grandmother that was like really kind and sweet, I will kind of start remembering the few times where my grandmothers were like kind and sweet. And so then it's like I know to talk about that. Or I'll think of like a best friend's grandmother. Or I'll get the tapping and then I'll think of a best friend's mom and I'll know that that grandmother was more like that mom. So it is like constantly like kind of pulling together information and then being brave enough to say it out loud. And sometimes like I can get a little lost in it, especially when it's like a new person coming across because I'll have less references for what a parent's friend is
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're not like I can't really remember my parents' friends all that well. Maybe some, but especially if they're not like anyone I can like pinpoint. Does that make sense? Then I have to get like playful with like, okay, if I know I have a parent's friend here with me, but then they're reminding me of my husband, like that's it doesn't even have to be someone on the other side. I'm like, ooh, that's an interesting conversation to have. And sometimes I pick up on it quickly. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's like they're trying to pull my teeth a little bit and I just have to be okay with it. Like, all right, well, I'm going to like see how far I can take this thing so that I can give the person the messages that they need to see, hear, and know today. Because that's the point. Like, they're like, you can talk about us physically or mentally or how we passed away all you want. They're like, but why we're here is because we have something to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like when you see they show you things, do they then speak about those things in your mind, or what's that like how do you get the message from what they're visually showing you?
Yeah, it's like a feeling. It's like putting a
Okay.
feeling into words. So then they'll start showing me like a feeling. It often can start off with like I love you, like I love you, I love you, I love you. Because that's how they feel on the other side, no matter who they were here in life. They're like, gosh, like look at this human being being brave enough to live a life. It can be a lot sometimes. It can be boring, it can be dull, it can be exciting, whatever. And so it's like putting words to a feeling, and that feeling can be like so much sometimes from the other side that it is hard to put into words how they feel about us or how they feel about a situation in our lives. But I do think that that's how they communicate. Like they communicate by giving us feelings and then we as humans communicate with words. So it's like trying to interpret a mixture of what they're saying. They do often talk quite quickly for me. So it's kind of reminding them to slow down sometimes or to like slow the vision down even
Hmm.
and then to match that vision with a feeling of what they want to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah. Those are
Cool.
great questions. I love that. Do you have any other questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a few readings. I'm going to ask you a few questions about your readings, but
Sure.
funnily enough, oh, good. Okay. I took them on two separate pages. Okay, hold on. Oh yeah, this is like a personal question, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. I'm so curious about, and there's two reasons I'm asking you this. One's a little selfish. I'm going to ask you about your parents' friend,
Huh.
because even just that connection that I made, I now understand it better. I'm like, oh yeah, parents have friends too that have passed away, or there's like something to that. It expands my knowledge, and then the next time it comes up in a reading, I'll be able to communicate it even better. But so he also sounds like he was super close with you, like you have a
Yeah.
tattoo in his honor.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
almost like a second dad to
Oh,
me.
I love that. Yeah.
Um, and he was like my dad's best friend. Um, and he got really sick at the end of his life and um, didn't really want people there.
Okay. Yeah.
And when he got sick, and my dad was so he lived in New York City. We're from upstate New York. So my dad was going to the hospital to see him, and I was in high school, I think. And my dad didn't want me to go because he didn't want me to see him like that. And I asked
Mhm.
him if I could go because I want he would we were so close. And when I got there, he was in the hospital and he was sleeping, kind of like in and out, dozing in and out. And I walked in the room and I sat at the end of the bed, and that's when he woke up and he said, "You'll always be my angel."
Oh,
And so that kind of has always been my memory, like why I would have gotten that tattoo and, on
yeah.
honor of him. But yeah, we were very close. Like he could tell me something, then my dad told me the same thing. I'd listen to Michael
Yeah.
and over my dad. But yeah,
Oh.
you know.
I love that. And I love that. And I think a heart is I mean, that quote is beautiful on its own. But how it manifested into like a heart
Hmm.
tattoo. I love that whole story. I think that's so
Hmm.
beautiful. Like,
Hmm.
and what a great way to remember someone.
Hmm.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
telling us.
sure.
I love that. Okay, I'm just gonna look at my notes one more time. And so it would is a heart, has that become like a sign symbol for him for you?
No, I
Okay.
I would have to pay more attention to it, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
That's, yeah.
and
I mean, then that's like one of the things, like the more we pay attention to it, or I mean, you just like you have it, right?
hmm.
But I think where I was gonna go with that, sometimes when someone asks me that in a reading, we're like, hey, like, do they see this like thing that I
Hmm.
have for them in their honor? He keeps bringing up the number two, like even while I'm talking right now. That's okay.
Hmm.
Really good. But when we have it, where is it going with that? Sometimes it turns into a conversation of like, well, do you already have a sign symbol for him?
Hmm.
So you could either do that hard, or even kind of like more the specificity of those words.
Hmm.
And like when that comes up, like you're my angel or you'll always be my angel, when that comes up, because that's such a specific thing that even if you were only to hear that like once every other year, it's like so, it stands out so much more that you
Hmm.
just know he's with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I like them both. It's like every time you see a heart, or even looking at your own tattoo, of course, or like hearing or seeing that quote. I think
Hmm.
that's perfect. And it's a little bit of a game of like, how much can I trust it? How much can they give it? The more we trust it, the more they give it. And it
Hmm.
can always cascade into something different. Like signs and symbols can kind of grow over time. But I like, you kind of already have one that's like great to see every day, and then you have
Hmm.
one that's really specific. And so sometimes having both like that is a perfect place to have someone come in and show them that they are there. Okay. And then you didn't like really know your great aunt. I think that there was something that was happening in the beginning with the male friend coming in, and they kind of knew on the other side that I was getting lost. And so then I have this like great aunt that's like, "Well, let me help you out a little bit." There's also like, you're taking this angle as like an aunt. Aunt at like a striking angle like that would be more of someone like in parents' generation, parent, sister, or brother, aunt or uncle. So I was like, ooh, like since it's out here, are we talking about aunt-ish. A great aunt fits into that. And it's not that I'm like trying, like purposely trying to make something fit. It's more that my brain is going like, I would love to make a connection. And spirits on the other side are going, yeah, we would love to give a message. And it doesn't so much matter who it comes from. They're like, if Hailey can't figure out who this is, like, dad's friend, then Hailey can figure out who this is and we can just like get the conversation going to then get into the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not a question you asked, but somehow I felt compelled to say that. Do you have any other questions for me?
I
Or
don't
in
think.
general about the reading, anything?
Um, at one point, you said something about putting my career on hold.
Hmm.
And you made the reference of like a lot of love and something about motherhood, essentially like that. And that I think that was from my grandma. And I'm wondering from her if there's a reason that she's telling me to put my career on hold, as if, is there something else coming in the motherhood realm that I need to prepare for instead of my career at this moment?
Well, I'm going to ask you a question with it.
Mhm.
Do you want to put your career, I'm assuming, do you have a child already? Or are you wanting a child?
So I have a 5-month old.
A baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So I've recently been like, I need to get back to work. I need to bring in some money. I need to, but what does that look like for me? Because I have so many different pieces that I could
Yeah.
do. Like, I could bring them all together. I could go this direction. I could go that direction. So her saying like, put it on hold. Why?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm
It's a
just,
great question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you, and anyone else can look this up too. I have a Substack, and I'm going to send you like a link. Remind me if I forget, but a link to the Calling in Careers Substack, and it's helpful for calling in a career in any direction you want to take it. But sometimes, like I hear what you're saying, and I think what I'm wondering is, are you in a position where you could take a break from work, or does me saying that make you be like, oh, I can't take a break right now? Like it's just not
so
possible.
I've been on a break.
Okay.
And I guess that's my question is like, continue that for another purpose? Like, are we going to have another kid and I need to focus on that more? Or is there something else that's coming that's going to make more sense for me career wise, that I just need to put all these other thoughts I have about what I should go back to or change or do on hold?
Yeah, I think quite possibly it's a little bit of both. Because I kind of feel that, and of course, like I can't say if like 100% like another child is coming, but I can like kind of see that. Like it feels a little bit inevitable to me. Um, I can't totally tell when or how. I do
Right.
think it's important if you're feeling a little bit of a call to like get back into career to get back into it. And like, should you need to take another break later, you take another break
Mm-hmm.
later. But yeah, do that practice because what it just sounds like to me is that there's maybe some potential for a career shift.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not a total change, but like a good career shift that kind of allows more to come in general for you.
Mm-hmm.
And by more, I mean like even more time off or even more time, like self reflection time to
Mm-hmm.
get into just notch it up more into exactly what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Doing that little practice will help make that feel more clear. Sometimes when we talk about career, especially at like new motherhood in general, it's like a big topic, right? Like we can feel foggy and a little bit lost. That happened with me with my second child. Like I just was like, I don't know who I am or what I'm doing. And I'm not saying that you're feeling that way, but I think it's oftentimes when we're given this shift of motherhood, we tend to start contemplating everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no wrong answer. We can either go right back into what we were doing before because it feels good and familiar and it's right for us, Or we can take that fogginess and be like, well, what else is there? Like, if am
Mhm.
I foggy because I have so many options in front of me? Am I foggy because, I mean, and I'm not talking about like hormones, because there's also like a mental health space that people can, and I have some of those resources on my website. But there's also like, am I foggy because my only option is to go back into what I was doing, but I'd like things to change? Or am I foggy because I really have like a lot of doors open in front of me,
Mhm.
and I don't want to go back into what I was doing? And I, you know, like there's so many different directions I could take that. But doing that little practice through my Substack is going to feel helpful and at least provide like a little bit of clarity. And then it's just taking one step at a time. We never manifest out of our worst fears. We're only manifesting out of actions. And so when you take an action into just like one thing that you want from your career, it will become even more clear and more clear and more clear as time goes on. But I will say, like, now is a great time, as hard as it is to hear, it's a great time for things to be unclear
Mhm.
and just to be like, I don't know. Like, maybe I
Mhm.
don't want to go back to work. Maybe I do. Maybe I do only a little bit.
Mhm.
And it's like, is the more playful we can be with that, the better. I know that there's some people listening like, I don't have an option, like I have to go back to
Mhm.
work. That's okay too, but to also be playful with like how you go back to work and how you can harness in what's next for you. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Mhm.
Okay. But I don't think she's saying anything bad. Like, she's not saying like, hey, like you have to take time off. I think more what she's saying is like, hey, this could be like a great time to let yourself settle so that
Yeah.
then you get into the next things that are more aligned with what you really want.
Mhm.
And it's never more aligned with what's for you. It's always more aligned with what you want. They
Mhm.
want what we want, not the other way around. They don't have some predestined purpose for us that we haven't caught on to yet. They're just waiting for us to admit what we want to ourselves. So the quicker we do that, the quicker we get what we want. It's really hard for us humans to admit what we want. It's hard for us to like even know what we want sometimes. So I have a little practice that's helpful with that. And it's okay to just be like, well, I think I kind of sort of want this. Like, I think I kind of sort of are a great place to be, because it gives the universe more room to let more things come in so that that clarity can come eventually. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Raya, will you tell everyone what you do, or and anything that you want to promote?
Sure. So as we've all heard, I have a lot of a lot of moving pieces. I'm a nurse by trade, but
Oh,
I also am a nutritional therapy practitioner and a functional hormone specialist. I teach barre at the Barcode. I'm recently yoga certified, prenatal, postnatal yoga, and soon to be kids yoga certified too. So
ooh,
it's when you talk about that and like which direction, it's kind of like, do I want, how can I bring kind of all those pieces of me together into something that can help others? That's kind of where I'm like, do I go back to nursing for a little bit? Do I try to shift my nutritional therapy practice in a different direction now that I'm a mom? And I feel like foundational wellness for families is huge, and it's something that we are missing and could be. So it's kind of just all those things in my mind that I'm like, which direction do I take it? I would love to get my practice back up and going, but working to like kind of revamp it. I did a lot with women's health and cycle syncing and all that with movement and nutrition. And maybe now I'm shifting into family foundational wellness.
yeah.
So just kind of working on that. But you can find me on Instagram at my Instagram is Raya underscore George, I think. Or my website is rayageorge.com. So you can follow me, send me guidance, questions, anything you got. No, that's where I
I
am.
love that. What, like, that's such a wonderful resource for a lot of people listening. So rayageorge.com,
Mm-hmm.
or Raya underscore George
Uh-huh.
on Instagram. Oh, I love that. You know what's kind of cool about hearing you just say that out loud is you actually are pretty, like, you have kind of a sphere that you
Mm-hmm.
know you want to be in, and then you just have choices within that sphere. I mean, really, truly, sometimes I have people that sit with me that where that sphere has popped, and like all of a sudden it's so incredibly big that we really do need to focus on some clarity and like hone back into wants. But you've kind of created like a want bubble, and you're in it, and it's great that there's so many different things to kind of bounce off of in there, and I have no doubt that it's going to sink in over time, and that's exciting. I can't wait to see all the places that you go with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being on, Raya. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thanks for having me. It was fun.